Hey everyone, this is Book of Katherine, and I'm really proud of you for surviving Kavanaugh. But I do want to remind you that it's not the American media that you just survived. You just survived the UN media. What's the UN media? That would be Saudi Arabia, Iran, China, Russia, the UN dictators of the world who actually believe in and practice socialism. Because if you need to learn one thing, it's that no one else in the world practices freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of choice. There's no other country in the world that practices or has freedom in their laws. No one. No one has freedom of speech in their constitution. They have some similar laws in some Western countries, but no one has it, and the ones that do have actually started quickly eroding it and sending people to jail. Like Canada, they're having tribunals and putting people in jail just for the things that they say. But in the majority of the world, girls are being married off at the age of 6. In the majority of the world, in 62 countries, if a woman doesn't wear a burqa from head to toe, she's beaten with 60 lashes. Her vagina is cut off at age 6. And it's not just her clitoris, it's her entire labia. Did you know that music and dancing is banned in Islam? Did you know that in Islam, in India, honor killings take the form of women being set on fire? In China, concentration camps still exist. They put a nice little label on some of them and actually call them labor camps because they make clothing for Walmart, Amazon, and eBay. When you go on eBay and they have that $10 section, those are labor camp clothes. But they sure look good and they cost nothing. So when you see Kavanaugh press, and it sounds like they're suddenly choosing something that assumes guilt instead of assuming innocence, that's because that's the way the law runs in the rest of the world. They assume guilt first and then innocence later. You only get innocence if you're with the ruling party. They like to say guilt first. They want to get Americans used to guilt first. You know why? Because they introduced world socialism at the local level in America in 1992 through Agenda 21. And they've been slowly introducing it through our media. They just skipped our government and they went in through our media and they went to city councils. If you look into your city councils, go ahead, go on Amazon. One of the main ways China gets through and gets their funding is through Amazon. If you look through Amazon's economic practices and Amazon's economic practices, oh, lo and behold, they're the same thing. They started at the same time. Exact same time. Grew at the exact same rate. World Trade Organization. Look it up. Very interesting. Amazon was supposed to be a bookstore. How did they get into selling clothing? How did all that happen? Oh, right, the World Trade Organization. Isn't that interesting? Why is it that they actually have slave-like practices for their people? Why do they put little chips on their workers and track their workers? Isn't that interesting? They do similar things in their labor camps, in the concentration camps in China. Isn't that interesting? Human rights violations all over the place. My point in all of this is just to say that when you see press on Kavanaugh and when you see hate hurricanes, you're going to be seeing things in the upcoming elections. None of it is American media. all of it is simply paid for advertisements to get you used to how the law is carried out in the rest of the world. The way the law works in America is not the way it works anywhere else in the world. And the rest of the world, right now, all of our media is just paid for advertising. It's all AstroTurf. Every headline is paid. Watch China Uncensored. Look up New York Times on China Uncensored. Go ahead, look at the Iowa Registered. All paid for headlines by China. Every time you see a news story, every headline is for sale. Read the book Smear by Cheryl Atkinson. We had a lot of award-winning news reporters leave the business 5 years ago because it turned into 100% AstroTurf industry, which is paid headlines. And you know who paid for all the headlines during this Kavanaugh crap? It wasn't a democracy. It was all these countries, these socialist countries that wanted to get you used to socialist justice. So when you read it and it doesn't seem to make sense, you say, oh, our country's changing. No. They're trying to change our country and get you used to a different fabric, a different way of life, a different set of laws from the ones we have now. And if you get used to it, you won't notice it so much when they pay your city council to change things, which is what they've already started doing. You should probably check into it. Go ahead and buy the book Agenda 21. It's available on Amazon. Read through it. World Socialism, begun in 1992 at the local, state, and government level. The UN went around countries' leaders, which is why the President of the United States at the UN just last week went before the UN and said, I have never interrupted your sovereignty. In fact, the United States has never tried to change your culture, your religion, everything. All these AstroTurfings for the last 25 years, all their AstroTurf has said, all of your students and your kids, they'll all tell this to you. America is a brutal dictator. It has bases all over the world. And oh, they're so terrible. They're such a brutal dictatorship. They have bases in all these countries. Okay, yes, we have bases in all these countries. And yet we've never profited off their mines. We've never taken their resources. We've never stolen their property, ever. We've only asked for their votes, ever. We've never changed out their currency. We've never changed out their language, ever. All we've ever done is said, vote for democracy, period. Just protect democracy, period. Make sure your people vote, period. Now China instead, because we gave all our money buying China and buying Chinese, so we don't have any buying power. Now China's doing the same thing. You know what China's doing instead? China's colonizing everything. So China has colonized absolutely everything. And so now Africa's trading in the yen. So is Greece. And they actually have moved in all these Chinese companies. And they've just moved their Chinese people in. So the African culture is being wiped out. The people are being wiped out. Their currency is being wiped out. Oh yeah, America is in an awful dictatorship. Right. Socialism is spreading around the world. And the map is looking worse than it did in World War III. Worse. 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 Look at the book, The Devil's Chemist, on the map on the back, and it looks exactly like it does when you see China's map of where it's colonizing. We are so, so close, but they own our press. They own our press. So when it comes to Kavanaugh, don't listen. Remember who owns it, and simply ignore it. And watch my video called The Hate Hurricane. If you're about to run or get involved in politics or anything like that, or if you're Brett Kavanaugh and you're watching this, or your family related to him and you're trying to survive this, honey cakes, we ain't watching any of that crap. We're not watching it. It's like, trying to eat something that makes you vomit. Like, you try to eat it, it makes and you don't eat any more of it. Like the people who do that are addicted to drama and they're just eating it for the drama. You know what I mean? Like they're not watching it to make a decision. They know whether they like it or not when they just touch it a little bit. They make a decision on the outcome at the end. Most people just wait and see what ends up happening at the end. For example, Clarence Thomas. Like in the end, his legacy won out. All the truth came out about it. And that's what most people do is they wait to see because they know the truth will come out. They know if they get their nose stuck in the middle of it, the truth isn't going to come out and they get all tossed and turned like getting in a blender and they keep their fingers out of the blender. So watch Hate a Hurricane and I'll attach it right here so you can survive, especially if you're his family. Just don't put your fingers in the blender. But I've been there. Don't put your fingers in the blender. You need to survive, especially to those of you who are running. Just don't put your fingers in the blender and save yourself a lot of grief because your followers and your fans and people who are waiting for you to serve judgment, they're not putting their fingers in the blender. Not the people you actually care about, whose opinions you actually are concerned about. They're not actually doing it. They have better heads on their shoulders than that. All right, I love you guys. Just remember, it ain't America. It's other people in the world who's got their grip on our media. And they have a different goal in mind. And it ain't freedom of religion or the press. They've got other things on their mind. And it's too bad, too sad for them. Peace out. Because we got the vote. Bye. Flee in the GOP, baby.